Hello, good evening and welcome to the program. This is Daily Politics, your go-to destination for all things politics, policy and governance, live on Trust TV. My name is Abdullahi, Ahmed. Welcome. And tonight we start the program by diving into some of the day's compelling political stories. The federal government of Nigeria, through the Nigerian Midstream and Downstream Petroleum Regulatory Authority, has threatened to shut down any filling stations profiteering from Nigerians by selling PMS, also known as petrol, as high as 1,000 naira per litre. The department alleged that filling stations across several parts of the country operated by independent marketers have raised their prices to between 900 naira and 1,000 naira at the expense of Nigeria. This is on the heels of public outcry over stark difference between prices of petrol at filling stations operated by the Nigerian National Petroleum Company Limited and those of the independent marketers, as long queues continue to persist across the nation. The presidential candidate of the Labour Party in the 2023 election, Peter Obi, has criticized what he terms as the persistent harassment of journalists in Nigeria by the authorities. According to Obi, the federal government's trend of using security and intelligence agencies to arrest and detain investigative journalists could push the country towards becoming a banana republic, according to the Labour Party's presidential candidate. Recall that the Nigerian police confirmed the arrest of Bristol Tamono, also known as Pidom, who runs the anonymous whistleblower account on X. And in other news, the leadership of the Labour Party has moved against Abia State Governor Alex Otti and others, calling for the convening of the party's National Executive Committee meeting to set up a caretaker committee. The Abia State Governor had recently met the national chairman of the party, Julius Abure, where he tendered his intent to convene a NEC meeting on Saturday, August 31st. The governor argues that the tenure of the party's current leadership had expired long ago, but the National Working Committee of the Labour Party, in a meeting convened by Abure on Tuesday, countered this move, stating that there is no vacuum in the leadership of the Labour Party. The party, while insisting there is no leadership crisis, announced the establishment of a disciplinary committee to be chaired by Kehinde Edun, its national legal advisor.
11. Apart from the fact that the Federal High Court in Abuja has already validated the National Convention held in March, there are other persons who have equally challenged the convention of the party, and these cases are as follows. The lists are here and you can see them. It is therefore trite in our laws that once cases are pending in court, parties are to maintain status quo ante in order not to destroy the rest. In this case, INEC is expected to maintain the status quo ante in order not to destroy the rest of the party. INEC is expected not to descend into the arena of conflict, but to continue with its neutrality and work cordially with the recognized leadership of the party until the courts state otherwise.
The chairman of the Labour Party there, Julius Abure, addressing a press conference in reaction to the position of Abia State Governor Alex Otti regarding convening a National Executive Committee meeting of the Labour Party. That about does it for the political roundup today. Let's dive straight into tonight's big issue. Nigeria's top secret security agencies, the State Security Service, also known as DSS, and the National Intelligence Agency are tasked with safeguarding the nation from internal and external threats. But in a surprising twist, both the NIA's Director General Ahmed Rufai Abubakar and the DSS Director General Yusuf Magaji Bichi have stepped down from their roles. In response, the president had swiftly appointed Ambassador Mohammed as the new head of the NIA and Adeola Ajayi as the Director General of the DSS. The pressing question now is, will this shake-up lead to a stronger, more secure Nigeria going into the future? And to help us explore this, we're joined by Our expert analyst, Dr. Kabir Adamu, is a seasoned security analyst and managing director of Beacon Consulting Limited. And Brigadier General Sani Usman Kukasheka, retired, is a former spokesperson of the Nigerian Army, and we hope to have him join us virtually. But we do have Dr. Kabir virtually join us on Zoom to expand on this developing issue. Doctor, good evening, and thank you so much for joining us on Daily Politics.
Thank you, and good evening.
Right. Let's set the ball in motion this way. Let's quickly take a look at reactions from the headquarters of the DSS on Monday, when that announcement of the stepping down of Magaji Bichi was announced and the president nominated his successor. Just take a look at this video and we'll come back to set the conversation in motion. Well, in case you don't know what all that is about, it is reportedly a video showing some rather excited staff members of the Department of State Services jubilating there, whether it's at the departure of Magaji Bichi or the appointment of Adeola as the new Director General of the DSS remains open to interpretation. But for the most part, a lot of Nigerians believe this was a celebration of the departure of Magaji Bichi as Director General of the DSS. Dr. Kabir, I get the sense that you must have seen this video online, but if you haven't, let me just get your quick reaction to this one. What does this particular development signpost for a serious agency such as the DSS?
Thank you very much. In simple terms, we are in the era of social media, and as far as I know, all the intelligence social media, and that includes bans that were restriction on the videoing of their actions or activities inside the office. In fact, if you are a staff, you are restricted. There is a usage policy of your phone while you're inside the office. If you are a visitor, they usually would restrict you. So when this video emerged, the first thing that occurred to me is it genuine or is it one of those videos? And of course, there are different sides to the story. Some say it's a fake video that was a few years back. Others say it's a very recent video. Now, irrespective, it speaks to the level of, I would say, unprofessionalism that sadly most of organizations that have descended to. We saw a similar video when one of the security chiefs was appointed immediately after this current president was sworn in. In that instance, it has a tribal sentiment. It was a particular ethnic group that was jubilating because that person was appointed. Now, in this one, because there was no audio, we could not really detect why they were jubilating. But the mere fact that such a video emerged from the sanctum of what is, for all intents and purposes, a very professional organization, one that is meant to be the custodian of everything secret, makes me a little bit worried. And if, of course, that organization would have access to the audio from that video, if it also has an ethnic sentiment, then that will make me even extremely worried. That organization cannot afford to have those type of divisions where certain elements will celebrate because someone from a particular part of the country, is being appointed or is being removed. It's an organization that should promote unity, that should promote diversity. Having said that, the personality of Magaji Bichi has been controversial within that organization. You would recall there were periods where he was accused of recruiting from a particular region of the country, and it was all over the media. We were told that even the National Assembly intended to look at that, but then I don't think it did. So perhaps that sentiment also led to the kind of celebrations we saw. But whatever it is, I do not think it augurs well for such a professional organization.
Yeah, and Doctor, just looking at that short video clip, does that give us an insight into, the perceived politicization of our security operations in this country, vis-a-vis its largely accepted, underperformance by the Nigerian public?
So, there are various ways to look at that. Underperformance is a function of mandates, as it were. The person who appoints, or as it were, gives that mandate is the one to measure that performance. And in this instance, we do not know the brief that was given to the various persons in leadership. In the case of Agajibichi and Ambassador, that of the NIA, it is something that is very rare in Nigeria happened. They were retained by the incumbent president for more than a year. And if that is a measure of his satisfaction with their performance, then I think for all intents and purposes, he was happy with them. So again, performance can be defined or determined by different parameters. For us, for the average Nigerian, the easiest way to measure performance would be perhaps his ability to go to his farm or his ability to travel from location A to location B. And especially in the northern part of the country, a significant number of Nigerians are very unhappy about that. They can't access their farms. They can't travel from point A to point B. We are still reeling from on dastardly incident, the killing of the Sarkin Gatawa. In fact, his corpse is still in the hands of his murderers. And so if you use that as a parameter to measure performance, definitely, especially the organization that has responsibility for internal intelligence, which is the SSS, you may score them very low. If you also use abduction, as you know, I run an organization called Beacon Security and Intelligence Limited, and we do release data. We know, for instance, that in this year alone, more than 4,000 to 5,000 Nigerians have been abducted. And in between the month of June and July, we saw a 122% increase in the number of abductions in the country. So if you use that as another parameter, perhaps we will not mark them as successful. If you also use fatality as a parameter, we know that more than 6,000 to 7,000 Nigerians have been killed between January to July 2024. And that, again, if you use it as a parameter, it will be difficult to score the performance of the security leadership as a pass. But like I said earlier on, the person who appointed them left them for more than a year, even after he was sworn in, which is not the traditional thing in Nigeria. So it depends on really what you are using to measure their performance.
Right, quite true. It's all about perspective. Well, we're happy to say that we have joined us on the program tonight, retired Brigadier General Usman Kukasheka, who is joining us also virtually to add value to this conversation. Brigadier, thank you so much for taking the time for joining us on this particular conversation. We're discussing national security, obviously, and looking at the development from the DSS and the National Intelligence Agency over the past 48 hours or so. How can Nigerians, and where do you stand on the best way to rate the performance? Dr. Kabir there was making the point that looking at the results, looking at the outcome, looking at the current reality, it's very hard to commend the efforts of some of these security agencies. But with specific reference to the clandestine intelligence agencies such as the DSS and the NIA, isn't it a bit difficult for Nigerians to rate them, given that 100% of much of the work that they do is a secret to the population?
Yeah, thank you very much, and thank you so much for having me on the program. And thankfully, I have been following through and I have listened. But the starting point, first and foremost, I would like to state and commend Kabir for the insight he has given, the two instances about the video clip and of course rating the performance vis-a-vis the prevailing circumstances. And for those of us that are quite familiar with the Yellow House, the headquarters of the Department of State Services, I can categorically state that that thing, I think, is the handwork of some mischievous element, because no such thing has ever taken place at the DSS headquarters on the announcement of the new leadership or headship. That being it may, the truth again is that, just like you rightly alluded, we are in the era of social media. And one other thing that I would like to say again, it might have emanated from the DSS. One or two disgruntled elements decide to mischievously juxtapose it and send it as such. And I expected even the DSS, from as of this moment, to have disputed that fact and, of course, investigate whoever is behind that. That having been said, just like Doctor has just said, it is a bit difficult given the nature of their job. And more importantly, when you look at the statement from Ajuri, the government or the president thanked them for their services. So automatically, and it is very, very difficult because to judge in the sense that because the statement was explicit, and like previous instances, reasons were given for even of someone of appointment. So it is very difficult. But with the realities on the ground, I think there could be some reason that they do not want us to know. But in as far as much Nigerians are concerned, and it is not just the Department of State Service or the National Intelligence Agencies, it cuts across board. There are so many ministries, department of agencies. The expectation is far below what is expected from Nigerians. So automatically, it's something that cuts across board. So it's not peculiar to these two agencies, as it were. But the most important thing is that now there are changes in the leadership. What is the way forward? I think that is the most important conversation. And I'm so happy that Kabir was also making reference that we should not belittle such things, reducing them to primordial issues. These are national institutions performing critical roles and responsibilities, and we are at crossroad in our national history because everybody is aware, and he he reeled out the numbers, in terms of casualty and instances of security challenges, be it kidnapping, banditry attack, and so on and so forth. What do we do now that we have new leadership, or what is the expectation so that we can have, a more secure Nigeria, or we have a better way of doing things as to why? Because information and intelligence, they are very critical in dealing with these security challenges.
And Brigadier General, if we could just talk about the developments around the departure of the Director General of the DSS and that of the NIA. Usually Nigerians are more used to seeing the president relieving them of their duties, right? And as Doctor pointed out, 15 months later, after the president took office, that is when we're seeing this change of guard from the old to the new, because they did serve the Buhari administration for quite some time. Is there something there to make of them stepping down versus the president sacking them or firing them, as the case may be?
I think we cannot say precisely. If you had listened to what I said at the beginning, the statement by the presidency even thanked them for their services. And beyond that, they did not give any further reason. I remember the president had the powers to hire and fire. And beyond that, if you look at the outgoing director, National Intelligence Agency, he was even given an extension of 15 months, which is very rare. And of course, the Director General, DSS, also has spent close to how many years now? So it's normal. I just kept on wondering, do you actually want them to die in office or what? So these kind of changes are routine. They are normal. And that is what we expect. And possibly the president has more congenital reasons why. But he kept it to stay. So let's leave it at that. But the most important thing is that they have rendered service, and the nation is very grateful for the service they have rendered. brought up, brought in. To what extent are they bringing, new ideas that could move the system forward? I think that is the most important thing rather than this speculation. And if you follow these conspiracy theories, there were speculations. The people that were supposed to, have been appointed, they were not appointed. And these speculations were made by people that were supposedly opinion holders that have large followership and all the rest. And I think it is a point of duty that let us always investigate beyond all these, speculations. It has happened and is normal and is routine. Let's move forward. And if there is anything untoward, I'm so sure the government will take it up against them. But naturally, just like I said, we are all living witnesses to everything that is happening in this country. The security challenges, which I know is a collective responsibility. So even if they are going to be successful, they need the support and cooperation of other components of the society, particularly in the security architecture. I think that is the most important thing rather than speculate in conspiracy. And I think, again, the issue of public service should be respected in the sense that people should be encouraged to come forward and render, because they are putting their lives in danger and all the rest of them. Yes, agree they are the punishment, but that notwithstanding, I think we should encourage that kind of thing, rather than allowing people to be speculating and denigrating their personality, after rendering all these services.
All right, Dr. Kabir, let's circle back on this particular question. Do you think there's anything there? Nigerians are not used to seeing people at the highest level step down, even when there's a lot of controversy around their performance or something when it comes to their track record. Do you think there's anything to make out of this? I mean, I know Brigadier General was kind enough to mention the statement there, which pretty much shows that the president appreciated their performance, and you also alluded to it earlier. But we're just coming against the backdrop of what happened a few years ago when President Muhammadu Buhari retained his service chiefs longer than many Nigerians really thought they needed to stay in office because of the obvious underperformance there. Do you think them stepping down, as opposed to the president relieving them of their duties, says something about what we can expect going forward?
I can look at it from two angles in addition to what the general said. One angle is, let's go back to the Nigeria Securities Act, which created the two organizations, and the fact that within that intelligence community, there are four major organizations: the Office of the National Security Advisor, which is coordinator and kind of looks from the top at the other three organizations, that is the National Intelligence Agency, the Defense Intelligence Agency, and then the State Security Service or the Department of State Service, depending on what name you want to call them. Now, we know that for the first time in a very long time, we have a non-military person, and frankly, someone who does not have an intelligence background, who is now in the Office of the National Security Advisor. And we also know that he came in new and then met these persons who have been there for a very long time. And the fact that he worked with them for up to a year, in spite of this structural challenges that I've just mentioned, may have created some gaps here and there. And so it's not surprising to some industry watchers, especially those who understand the intelligence community, that these persons, after serving this administration for about 15 months, now this, as it were, handing over and to new persons. This may be just a development based on the president's choices, because remember, they are serving at the as it were, it's the president that appointed them. Anytime he feels he wants them to go, they will go. And in this instance, we didn't hear of any rift. We didn't hear of any disagreement. We didn't hear that they acted out of the mandate for which they were appointed. And so it seems to me that the most logical conclusion is that this is just procedural. Their time has reached, and they've submitted or handed over, their resignation, and new persons have been appointed. Now, that is one way of looking at it. The other way of looking at it is that the president wants a fresh look to the intelligence community. The entire intelligence community, the 4 organizations, have fresh persons. I mentioned the National Security Advisor. The DIA has had a new leadership. He was appointed a few months into the president's tenure, and now the DSS and the DIA and the NIA have fresh persons. So this gives an opportunity for the president's view, his intelligence imperative, because he does have an intelligence imperative. It hasn't been made public yet, but I'm almost certain he does have. So this is an opportunity for that imperative to be implemented. These new persons in charge of the 4 organizations, of course, spearheaded by the National Security Advisor. If you add the other departments within the Office of the National Security Advisor, such as the Center of Counterterrorism, and then the small arms and light weapons, soon to be commissioned, hopefully, then you find out that we do have a unique opportunity that the president has presented to the NSA for the emergence of a fresh approach and outlook to intelligence in Nigeria. I don't know what that would be, but perhaps in the course of the conversation, we can discuss pointers. We can also recommend some of the areas that we believe modern day national security would be supported by a very effective and capable intelligence community.
Right. And Doctor, let's just double down on that. There's a new sheriff in town for these 2 agencies, right? What can you tell us about what we know so far about their capacities and what that says about the kind of expectations Nigerians are likely going to have under this new era for the NIA and the DSS?
I mean, the most interesting thing for me is that they are both products of their systems. They were not persons who were brought outside. They grew through the ranks to reach the pinnacle of their careers in the very organization that they joined. They have worked in different departments within the two organizations. They understand the challenges, they understand the weaknesses within those organizations. They also understand the strengths within the various departments in the organization. And so the fact that the third element is that they're also young, relative to the persons that have just left. In terms of the trainings they've received, they've also received extensive trainings, both locally and internationally. So it is a very good opportunity, really, for them, and of course for the organizations that they are going to lead, and more importantly for us as a country, the input that they are going to give to support our national security imperative is something that hopefully we will see the results as long as they remain committed to the very mandate for which they were set up. Nobody should deceive himself that there are no challenges within the system. There are challenges within the system, and in perhaps attempting to confront those challenges, what is important is for them to carry along the very organization. In other words, the organizations require reforms in terms of both the exiting DGs have actually done very well. In the case of the DSS, his approach to training is quite commendable. We know that he has been very hands-on in terms of training the staff of that organization. In terms of technology acquisition, he's also been very hands-on. In fact, for the first time in the history of Nigeria, we're told that an agency is about to start rolling out drones, and the possibility of even arming those drones. And then in terms of surveillance capabilities, we've seen a lot of effort that he has done in that regard. So those are very large shoes for the incoming DG SSS to take over, and of course to even improve upon. In this era of technology, intelligence has changed. If you do not embrace intelligence, data is out there. Anyone who tells you there is no information is just kidding himself. The information is out there. What is important is how do you harvest that information, and technology is there to assist you. Apart from AI, there are several other components of adaptive intelligence that you can use, embrace, both in terms of collection and the entire intelligence cycle. So I'm hoping to see that. And then because it is a domestic intelligence agency, its investigation capability has to be increased. More times than not, we see occurrences. The most recent one is what happened in Abuja when a certain religious group as well invaded Abuja, and the result is that at least 2 persons or 3 persons have been killed. Now, if there was adequate intelligence and the reaction to that intelligence, that incident would never have happened. Through the use of intelligence, through the use of investigative techniques. Now that the incident has happened, we've heard that arrests have been made, but I'm not aware that the leadership of that organization has been arrested. It is only through intelligence that can be done. That's for the domestic intelligence agency. For the international intelligence agency, we have several challenges within our neighboring countries. If you look at what is happening in Niger, Mali, and Burkina Faso, the fact that they've exited ECOWAS has created a gap that, unfortunately, if we do not find a way to close that gap, the consequences would hit hard. The second one is Sudan. The crisis in Sudan has created a market for weapons within that region, and a significant portion of that weapon is trickling down into Nigeria. We're about to start encountering a proxy war within the Sahel between Russia and the West. In fact, we've already seen a semblance of that between Ukraine and Russia when Ukraine came out to say supporting the Tuaregs in Mali. And of course, the result is that the 3 countries, Mali, Burkina Faso, and Niger, have taken that country to the UN Security Council. So all of these are aspects that the National Intelligence Agency need to enhance its capacity for intelligence gathering and for especially prevention. There are several other aspects: drug trafficking, weapons proliferation, bioterrorism, name them, that have an international component, and it is purely in the mandate of the National Intelligence Agency. So we're hoping that both in terms of the human capacity as well as the technological capacity, we would see an enhancement in terms of the ability of the National Intelligence Agency to approach. So their work is out for them. And we're hoping, and from what I know about them, they are capable, they need our support, and we are here to support them. We're praying for them. And of course, the result is for all of us to benefit from.
Right. Okay, let's bring back in General Kukasheka into the conversation. General, we obviously know of the significant importance of intelligence and security management, and I think Dr. Kabir there itemized, if not all of them, some of them. What do these new heads of the NIA and DSS need to do? Do we need some outside-the-box thinking, or should they just focus on efficiency and effectiveness of the basics of intelligence work, especially given all the security challenges that Nigeria continues to face?
I think it is all encompassing, and Doctor has mentioned quite a number of them, but the most important thing, apart from all those capacity building and the use of technology, I think there is the issue of cooperation and collaboration, because they cannot work alone. The fact that it is NIA, which is external, it needs the support and the cooperation of other intelligence agencies and other components of Nigerian society. I think that is the most important. And more so, if you look at it, there is an umbrella body that is supposed to be a clearinghouse, the Office of the National Security Advisor. But even beyond what Kabir has mentioned about the HSIP, there are some of these components of the security architecture. They also have intelligence agents. Take, for instance, the military. Apart from the Defense Intelligence Agency, the various services, they have their directorates, or even though it is military intelligence, but it's equally very important. What is the level of relationship? What is the level of relationship with the correctional service intelligence? Is that of immigration and so on? Because the National Intelligence Agency requires support and understanding of those people in the immigration services and all the rest. So synergy of effort, collaboration, and coordination. Coordination actually to a large extent is basically the responsibility of the Office of the National Security Advisor. but cooperation and collaboration with each of these is equally very important. But most importantly, again, to what extent are they also bringing Nigerians on board in the discharge of their duties? Take, for instance, there were instances of, in the course of their discharge of their duties, there were reported issues of human rights abuses and impunity. So these are very important because so much as you talk about intelligence, to a large extent, yes, technology is very important, but the human intelligence is equally very important, so that you will not antagonize them, so that you can get the very best out of them. So there are so many things. But most importantly, to borrow what Kabir has said, their job is cut off for them, because look at the Establishment Act, and I'm so sure the person that appoints them definitely will give them a thorough briefing and will encourage others to assist them in the discharge of their duties. So like he said, we are also hopeful, we are praying, and we will definitely support them so that they can discharge their duties creditably for the benefit of the Nigerian society, because we are facing existential threat in this country, and to deal with these security challenges, it requires the intelligence community, and that is why their services are very important and very, and we need to support them to discharge that duty, to collaborate and cooperate with others, and of course share information so that those who have the responsibility of acting on this intelligence, they act appropriately. It might not necessarily be the military or even the Ministry of Commerce and Industry, because like he's talked about bioweapons, and now they have all this this new food issue, so many things that you require the support of others, you require the collaborate with others. Yeah. Most importantly, support of the Nigerian people.
Yeah, and General, just to double down on that, one particular word that continues to reverberate when we talk about national security, especially in the light of our current predicament from the Goodluck administration to date, has been synergy. And I think the reason why it has been re-echoed over and over is because it is lacking. We seem not to have this handshake between some of these agencies that need to work together to get the job done. As someone who has had to, deal with, sharing information across different agencies when you were still in service, give me an idea as to what they need to do to address some of these gaps, because without that handshake, I reckon they're going to have an even tougher time managing Nigeria's current security challenge.
I have mentioned this time and time again. I talked about cooperation and collaboration. And the third C, which is coordination, to a large extent, I said there is a clear body. And most importantly, if you look at the various acts establishing, they have their jobs cut out for them, what they should do and what they should not do. And in the course of their duty, they know that they have to collaborate, they have to cooperate with other agents and individuals, as the case may be. And that's the most important thing. So it's not the issue of handshake, it's the issue of making these things institutional, in the sense that whatever that the SSS or the DSS need to do to support other security agencies will do that. The same with the National Intelligence Agency. So it is not necessarily, I made reference to, even though we are talking about security, the security is all encompassed. We talk about commerce, trade and industries, that kind of thing. And beyond that, again, you look at the relationship with other components, the security agencies, is it the military, it's other, paramilitary agencies, and so on and so on. For the NIA, Kabir has just mentioned of the fact that, the yawning gap being created with the international happenings, especially in our neighborhood. And I think he put it mildly in respect of Sudan. Now, what is happening on the street of Sudan, weapons are sold just like you buy granola. And gradually that kind of thing is coming to Nigeria. And I believe he knows it, that proliferation of small and medium arms is a serious issue in this country. To what extent are they going to collaborate to ensure that that is done? It is not just internally, but how do they advise the government in terms of international relations? How is our foreign policy will be like? I think he left out what is happening even in Chad Republic. They are very, very important. The relationship between Niger and Benin Republic has corresponding, impact on the Nigerian economy and, social well-being. So these are some of the things that they really need to focus on, that you refer to as handshake. But most importantly, now that we have a coordinating body, you have the National Security Advisor. Now that he has hard work, he had worked with the outgoing DGs, now he has new hands. What extent is he going to incorporate them into the system to ensure that he has a smooth running intelligence machine that will assist the security architecture in discharging their duties? And it is not just enough for them to get the information and share it with the intelligence, but it to follow through to ensure that it is being used for the benefit of the security challenges that are happening. Of course, there are so many gaps, and they need to cover it, and it cannot do that without cooperation and collaboration with those people that I've mentioned or institutions that I've mentioned. I think that is the key. But of course, human capacity development, acquisition of technology, and so on, and even infrastructural development, they are key. So these are the core, this should be their focus. So that is why I say it is all encompassing, even though there should be priorities.
And Dr. Kabir, just doubling down on that particular point, is this quote-unquote interagency rivalry a real thing? We've seen them on the headlines of the news, DSS in a clash with EFCC operatives, vice versa. There's so many other embarrassing encounters that leaves many Nigerians scratching their heads, wondering why these agencies are working at cross purposes. And of course, the immediate past National Security Advisor, Major General Babagana Monguno, retired, had also highlighted this particular issue, saying that it's going to continue unless we take a look at some of those acts that establish these agencies, because it does look like there's a power struggle in between when it comes to getting the job done. From your assessment, how existential is this threat of interagency rivalry in Nigeria today?
Now, since we're discussing the intelligence community, I'm going to answer your question looking at the intelligence community and not necessarily the security sector as a whole. The level of coordination, cooperation, and collaboration within the intelligence community, I think, is excellent. There are very little instances of lack of harmony within the four agencies that make up the intelligence community. There are two platforms that these organizations meet in the Office of the National Security Advisor. And as long as those platforms are working, then the level of cooperation is excellent. The only challenge is that sometimes those platforms don't work. And I can't even say why, but I know of instances where for a very long period, the platforms don't work, these organizations don't meet. So at that strategic level, it makes it difficult for coordination to occur if the platforms for the coordination are not functional. So perhaps the responsibility is to ensure that those coordinating platforms work regularly. The meetings, if they are monthly, they hold monthly, and then strategic conversations and decisions are taken at that level. At the operational level, we're aware that there is excellent harmony between the four organizations within that sector. The challenge, however, is an inability, and this is a Nigerian challenge, inability to comply with the existing law. The Office of the National Security Advisor, if you follow the act that set it up, it's essentially an advisory body. While the DSS, the DIA, and the NIA have operational responsibility. Now, what we have seen in the past is that occasionally that Office of the National Security Advisor attempts to take up operational responsibilities beyond the advisory responsibility that is spelled out in that act. And when you refer to the attempt by the immediate past National Security Advisor to amend the act, it is actually to ensure that. Now, the current National Security Advisor, at the early stages of his appointment, also attempted using the National Assembly to amend that act, but it was rejected by the National Assembly. Perhaps in the coming days, coming months, he may also attempt to renew that. But for now, that body remains an advisory body. And as long as it complies with that and does not foray into the operational functions, then I don't think there will be any challenges. Where you are likely to see challenges if it continues to assume operational responsibilities, then there will definitely be challenges. Even if nothing happens now, by the time the election season starts occurring, you would see a lot of complaints from Nigerians regarding especially the perhaps perceived influence within the political space. So I think we need to be very careful there. That's number one. Number two, General hinted at grievances and respect for human rights. Now we need to look at that from two angles. Staff of the organizations within the intelligence community, the SSS, the NIA, and the DIA, staff who have left, who for one reason or the other are grieved. At the moment, I think we have 3 or 2 former DGs of the National Intelligence Agency who went to court over different matters. If you go to the SSS, you also have several former organizations who went to court, and while they were in court, their issues emerged. Now, as a result of that, we have seen significant issues emerging within that organization. So I think, especially as is provided within the Act, the president may wish to appoint an ombudsman. The Act actually provides for it, but from the time that Act was introduced in 1986 up until now, there hasn't been the appointment of an ombudsman within the intelligence community. So we're hoping that perhaps if the president appoints that ombudsman, he would look at those grievances and advise the president accordingly.
You talked about the politicization effect, right? And for the most part, Nigerians believe that our security agencies have become political tools in the hands of the people that wield them, whether at the federal or at state level. And for the security agencies, especially the intelligence agencies, we've seen so many of these arrests of dissidents, activists, journalists, for instance, inundate the news circles. What are your thoughts about how effective they've been in silencing some of these voices that many Nigerians believe are only trying to either whistleblow or draw attention to certain burning issues, and how the agencies have been reduced to doing some of these acts, for instance? Very briefly.
I would allow the general to speak about that. He is a former media spokesman, so he's probably in a better position to comment on that. General, over to you.
Kabir, don't assume the role of an uncle. Answer the question.
Well, in my honest opinion, the organizations have their briefings.
Just recently, I think one of the news updates that we shared this evening was the Labour Party candidate frowning against the recent arrest of one of these quote-unquote activists who is sharing certain sensitive information online about certain developments, who reportedly is in the custody of one of the intelligence agencies. What are your thoughts regarding that and the perception of Nigerians that these agencies are being used by political power brokers to silence their opposition?
Well, is it me or Kabiru? I thought he was answering before you preempt him.
Very, very briefly before we go.
Is it me or Kabiru? Let Kabiru continue.
Yeah. Okay. I see what General is doing there, but we're going to have to leave it there for now. Gentlemen, thank you so much.
Actually, I'm not afraid of it, but you are not being fair to him, because honestly, he's answering the question very well. So allow him to land. And more so, you have given him more insight. So give him a few seconds to do that.
Right.
Okay. On a serious note, the human rights.
Gave you the floor, but of course, we are completely out of time. Dr. Kabir Adamu, as always, thank you so much for giving us, your time this evening. Brigadier General Sani Kukasheka, thank you very much, as always, for honoring our invitation. We do appreciate you both for sharing your insight on this developing issue. We hope to circle back in the near future. Thank you both.
Thank you for having me.
And of course, course, this is where we wrap things up on tonight's edition of Daily Politics. Feel free to follow us on our next edition, coming your way tomorrow live at 8 p.m, exclusive as always on Trust TV. My name is Abdullahi Ahmed. From myself and the rest of the team, thank you for your time, and we'll see you soon.